we go.
Hey, everybody. Hello, Steve. Hello, Anton. Moving the Checkov shirt today. And hello, everyone.
Except you.
Am I the only one wearing the old school Bridgecrew? It's okay. I'm representing the OG.
That's cool.
Welcome, everyone, to our latest episode of Codified Security Office Hours. I'm Matt. I'm here as always with Steve, and today we have a very special guest from the Bridgecrew open source team. Anton, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Anton Grübel. So as you can hear, my last name is German, obviously. So yeah, I'm from German, and I joined the Bridgecrew team. I think it's almost 9 months already, so I'm closing the 1 year. Very surprised it's already so long. But I've been an active Checkov contributor for much longer, and in general open source contributor for different projects for many years. And yeah, and at some point Bridgecrew reached out to me to work for them and to be more active in open source, and that's why I joined, and I love to contribute and work for.
Awesome. You're like the sort of poster child for, if you want to get a job here, contribute a lot to our projects.
Just create 50 pull requests, and then maybe we can talk about it.
I was just about to say, it's like one of those like old school open source, like beautiful career success story kind of things you hear about, isn't it? It's like, this person was doing this stuff with our open source and now works at the place doing the open source. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so if you ever thought, does it really work? Yeah, it works. You can go that way.
Pull request dependent.
Next obvious question, Anton. What is your beverage of choice?
Oh yeah, of course. Actually, my favorite. This is the Erdinger Urweisse. It's kind of wheat beer or Weiss beer in German, and this is kind of a bit more traditionally brewed, so it has more special taste, I would say. It's not so easy to get even in Germany, but I love it. So if you come at some point to Hamburg, feel free, then we can definitely grab one. That would be lovely.
Sounds
amazing.
Good.
And Anton's already a natural at turning this into more of a beer description show than a technical show about Checkov and open source. So well done. You'll fit right in here.
They fit great together, so why not?
Beer and Checkov. Absolutely. What about you, Steve? What do you want today?
I have a special edition. So a friend of mine, John Pugh, he lives in, there's a place called Spookton near Liverpool. He only just started this a couple months ago. He has 3 beers out, and this is Gloom. It's an oatmeal stout. He has a session called Giggles, and he has a 6.5% IPA called Imposter Syndrome for his first brewery's beer.
Wow.
So so he sent me a whole pile, and I did an interview on my YouTube channel with him already.
Nice.
Nice. New beers. Yeah.
I would absolutely love a friendly brewer to go and look around his brewery setup. If you could make that happen, maybe we do the next one of these on the road.
Sounds like a plan. What do you got?
Awesome. I am also on something a bit special, but without a related knowing the people. I have a Cloudwater Teeper called,
oh my God,
I'm going to have to do that in front of my face, called A Path Untraveled, and it's a re-release of one they did in 2020, which was stunning. So I've been meaning to try it, and I'm going to try it now because there's absolutely no point trying a 10% beer once you've already had a few beers, because it's just a waste, isn't it? So I'm gonna sip a little bit of this and let you know my.
Let's get Matt's component out of the way early, because
yeah,
might be some
I've got it in a little glass.
non-functional.
I've got it in a little glass.
That's too fancy. That's too fancy. I like to drink out of
Anyway, cheers, gentlemen, and yes, welcome along, Anton. Yes. What have you guys been up to? How's your week going so far, technical or otherwise?
Quite good.
I'll go. We're contemplating. I did a blog this week. I got one coming out soon that is talking about some of the things that we're doing internally, both in open source and non-open source, to do with supply chain security. And we're going to touch on some of it today. So how the open source feeds in. So I did a blog article describing all the different facets of supply chain security and how you can use Checkov to help. So that'll be coming out probably in the next week or so. So, look for that. That was kind of my turn that out.
Awesome. Yeah. What about you, Anton?
The question. I actually don't know how much I can share of it. Sometimes it's a secret.
But nobody watches this, so go ahead.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah,
except the executive management.
Yeah, all good. So basically, currently, so me and my team, we're working on the image referencer. So basically, the extension of the supply chain or workflows files, adding the SCA capabilities to it. So I hope in the next few weeks it will be ready, and then all the Checkov users can enjoy it.
That was a perfect thing to say, because I'm going to be doing a little demo on Chekhov's image referencer today. So
yeah,
that'll be a little sneak preview.
Yeah, totally.
For those of you watching and you've never heard the phrase image referencer before, Steve will explain all.
I shall.
Awesome. I'm super excited to be doing a talk, the first talk back at a meetup style event next week. I'm doing a little lightning talk on Your and all things automated infrastructure tagging. So our other open source project, Your.io. So that's going to be in London. Steve, do you have is the DSO London gathering link somewhere?
It is. It's. I'll stick it into the chit chat. It's not actually even announced yet because it was like a last minute. We had to know. We normally do it in 3 weeks, but we had a venue that was 2 weeks away, who was being really generous and gave us a huge space. It's actually the same one that Cloud Native London is using tonight.
Cool.
We'll be there next week. Yeah, we've got Matt doing yours, so kind of crushing your drift, and then right after that we have Aaron Reinhardt, who is one of the authors, co-author of the Security Chaos Engineering book. He's got an update to his book coming out, and so he's going to be in London. So if you're in London, well, either tonight, go to Cloud Native London, or in a week's time, same location, come to DevSecOps London Gathering, and you'll get to meet Matt and I.
Looking forward to it. So yeah, that's next week. Looking forward to. And this week I've been working on a new runner, which again, segue, I'll also be demonstrating for people that like using Circle CI for all of their automation pipeline needs. So we're gonna have that one in soon as well. Talking of all these things we're going to talk about, maybe we should talk about them. And the reason that we actually have Anton with us today, Anton, you've been working on a couple of new functions in Checkov, right? New functions. I know we kind of already have, those eager people that are already running the latest version, probably will already have seen Bicep, but you got a couple of other goodies in the pipeline as well, right?
Yeah, correct. So for today, also the Argo workflows. I will show it's already implemented, but there's still a couple of things missing. So basically, the platform implementation is still a bit ahead. I'm not sure when we will tackle it, but I hope soon. That's everything. And other than that, I mainly do a lot of the Bicep part. There's still a lot to do because this will also show it's very complex. But I don't want to talk too much about it. When I start to talk about Bicep, then I will show how complex it can be and how it's actually similar to already existing ones and how it differs and such things. But other than that, and I think new runners I wouldn't do so much currently. At least I have no idea which I want to implement. But maybe after your Circle CI, maybe there's something else. I also thought always about the Travis CI, but it feels like Travis CI is somehow not used anymore. Is it? I'm not sure.
I don't run into it very often, honestly. If you're watching this in the future and you want to throw something in the comments, like and subscribe to the Bridgecrew channel, but also put comments down below that says, I love Travis CI. You add it. And
Do
then
it.
that's good. That's what we need.
How dare you not use Travis CI? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but actually, I used it a lot in the past. I think before GitHub Actions was really became more the thing. Travis CI had really great metrics builds. So you can, especially for Python, was really great to like, okay, create on different OSs, on different Python version, and then you spawn 12 different workers to actually create, test your application or library against these different flavors. But I think after, they got acquired, I think, and so on, so it became quite weird. But I'm very proud. They're Berlin startups, so German. But they programmed in Ruby. I'm not such a big fan of Ruby.
Oh, never make.
If you're watching this
Travis
in the future
and
you like or use Ruby, let us know.
Yeah. That is it.
I
all
thought
right. So
Ruby dependencies were bad until I got to Node. Anyway. Sorry,
what else do we have on
you
the
off
show,
there.
Matt? What's tell the world the agenda for the show? Maybe we'll
sure. So we're gonna jump into Anton's demo of the Bicep runner and all things Bicep next. And then Steve, you promised you're gonna show people the image referencer, and we might as well show another runner while we're doing that, right? So if you want to demo that with, say, GitHub workflows, that would be awesome.
That's what I'm gonna
and then
do.
to round off the other runners, I'm going to show an in-progress peek of the Circle C I'm working on. And then we've also got some honorable mentions for some other runners that have snuck in very, very recently, and kind of the changes inside Checkov that have enabled all these runners to suddenly be so easy to create. So we'll probably close out on the kind of architecture changes around YAML and JSON, and cover why all these runners have suddenly sprung into existence.
Nice one. Already. Cool. So Anton, are you ready?
Yeah, I hope so. We will see.
All right. If you have the correct thing up, I will add your screen.
Yeah.
I don't want your email, your Slack messages.
There we go.
I already cancel out everything, so all good. Yeah. Awesome. So basically, to people who actually never heard about Bicep, it's a project created by Microsoft. That's why I opened up also their GitHub. So it's completely open source, as you can see. And it's still quite young. I think it's like 1.5 years old. And it's, I would say, a year-ish ago, they created a good enough version to be used. So it was like 0.4. As you can see, it's already 0.89. I actually don't know how they changed the minor version number, because sometimes they just jump. I have no clue why, but they probably have some internal way on deciding, okay, what is actually a version jump for them. And so because it's backed up by Microsoft, so it's not something like someone, I don't know, in a garage create together and want to go on to create a new infrastructure as code templating engine. So it's actually quite nice. So they thought about, okay, we know RM is maybe not the best way to actually create templates for Microsoft Azure. So RM is for the Azure Resource Manager. So basically, you want to deploy something in Azure, you have a couple of different ways to do it. So of course, we use quite a lot of Terraform, but some people don't want to, or they're afraid of it, whatever. So Microsoft has their own thing. It's called RM. And then at some point, they realized, it's okay. Maybe it's a bit complicated to write specific things. So let's do something different. So they created Bicep. And probably also think, okay, great, when they created new. But actually, is it how important is it for Microsoft to push Bicep compared to RM? And that's why I also opened up the Azure resource reference. So it's basically you would take a look on the Terraform registry and see okay, I want to create something, let's say a storage account in Azure, and then what kind of arguments should I use? And we can see directly here. So they have a tip here in green, so very prominent. And you can already see how they actually advertise the Bicep. So they really say, okay, why, if you really want to create new templates, why not switch it directly to Bicep instead of RM? So even Microsoft itself in their documentation are pushing very, very heavy on Bicep because they know RM is okay what they have, but it has specific limitation because it's a JSON syntax. It's really, really complex to like really hard to write specific things in this kind of JSON syntax. So why not make it easier? Yeah. And of course, if you look at the different here, the resource specification, the most famous one is probably a storage account. Let's see here, go for the storage accounts, and you can directly see there in this example as a Bicep. So they don't even show the RM first, they show directly the Bicep one. So you can really feel, okay, it seems to be important. It's not just some hobby project they created at some point. I mean, Microsoft has a lot of open source projects. Some people are surprised how much open source they're doing. And yeah, so let's have a look on how the whole like kind of the specification looks like, how you can actually create something, and how actually Checkov is interacting with it. Yeah. So you probably have Visual Studio Code at some point installed, or IntelliJ is also fine, but of course Microsoft Visual Studio Code, so you have a bit better how should I support for Bicep through Visual Studio Code because they also create an extension for it. So you can go for extension part and see here that's the Bicep. So you can also see like this is like probably one of the coolest icons I know for any tool. So it looks super awesome. That's why I really love it. Definitely a nice touch. And yeah, so you can install it, and you get directly the language server included. So you can easily get like the typical like IntelliSense, so you autocomplete and extra information on how you type and so on. So I open up here one of our projects. It's called actually Bicep Goat. You can also find it under our Bridgecrew organization. So it's similar to like our Terra Goat or CFN Goat and so on and so on. I think we should soon create a goat farm or something. I think we already have a couple of them. So it feels like it's growing and growing. So yeah, and you can see here, this is a typical syntax. So you have like parameters, which you can create. So what actually you put in from the outside when you actually want to deploy it. Variables are just inside references. So like if you're coming from Terraform, this is really the variables, local. So even they have a bit different names, but this is actually the locals part. Then you have the resource definition, and you can already see here, red marked, this is actually coming from Checkov. So Chekhov's already suggested here something, hey, there's something critical, ensure the key vault is actually recoverable. Yeah, makes sense, right? I mean, maybe you want to have your key vault recoverable if you accidentally delete it. So maybe it's a good idea. We will also see how to actually fix it. And then you also have different resources. So actually create a specific identifier, which kind of resource do you actually want to create and which version it is. And then you can put on the different properties if you want to. So let's see what does it actually mean. So we also have here actually a critical here for ensure that the expiration date is set on all secrets. So let's do it. So then we can also see like how actually the Bicep extension in Visual Studio Code works. And then of course we already saw how Checkov extension works, because otherwise we wouldn't know that we actually have to fix something. So we can enable the autocomplete, and you see, okay, let's add some attributes here. Okay, great. And then what do I want? Because as you remember, I didn't have an expiration date here, so I add the exp here. And then we can also see, okay, what do you actually want from me? Let's put this in. And then we can already see, or nothing we can see. Give me a second. There was a problem, expected the value of int. So, okay, we need an int, which is fine. So, and because it's a date, so let's see what kind of functionalities we have, because it actually wants an epoch time. So, and of course I can't remember the epoch time of whatever week in the future. So they have also added some couple of extra functions for you. So, and we choose the date time to epoch, and then you need to add some parts. And this, of course, I copied somewhere else because I can't remember it. And then you can copy it in.
I'd be worried, Anton, if you could remember last week's epoch time.
That would be crazy, right? A second, that's actually the millisecond correctness. And you can see we already fixed it, so it's all green, and we are actually just missing here to ensure the key vault recoverable. So it was quite easy. So both extension, the Bicep one, and also our actually working well next to each other, even they're not in any kind of affiliated to each other, but you can, of course, then use the Bicep part to actually write fast, like in a fast way, your templates. So similar to like how also you would write Terraform templates. So they really hold your hand for this. And we also adds some extra value for helping you to actually not make the stupidest mistakes which you can make. So yeah, so
awesome.
So that's
was there like a library that we used in Checkov to support the parsing, kind of like we used the HCL library for Terraform?
Yeah, correct. We use a library called Bicep or Bicep Parser. That's a library I wrote. Took me a couple of months to actually make this. So basically, we parse this, and so you can also find it. It's currently under my organization, so Anton Grübel, so you can find it here. You can also use it as library, of course, and that's basically what's actually doing. So it parses everything which you want and then gives you the output at the end. So there are a lot of tests, so you can also see like, okay, what you actually want to do is, for example, like, okay, I have here some couple of examples, and then what should come out at the, oops, sorry, not there. Let's go here, for example. Let's see the playground here. So you have a main biceps file, similar to what you saw before. This is like how bicep would be written. And what the parser is actually doing at the end is creating a JSON representation. And then, of course, with JSON, we can do whatever we want to. And yeah, there was a lot of work. So if you're interested in the holy grail, so basically all of the logic is in this kind of log file. So you can see it's long, those 360 lines of parsing. So took me some time.
Nice. I like that. It's like, oh yeah, it was super easy to implement like a bicep in Checkov because I just used this library, but then I had to write the library.
It took months.
Yeah,
nicely done.
Yeah, that's also like one of the biggest, I would say, differentiator compared to probably other tools, because they just offer you the RM kind of parsing or something, because RM is just JSON, so it's easy. So they tell you, okay, please transform the bicep file into an RM file, and then we will give you some information, which is okay. Yeah, it's also valid, but isn't it nicer to have inside your Visual Studio Code directly the information which you want, because otherwise you wouldn't get it.
As a developer, that is a much nicer story than, yeah, manually running a translation and then running other tools. Very, very cool.
Very cool.
So did the rules for ARM like map directly over to Bicep? So did we get Bicep with a ton of stuff like out of the box?
Correct. I think how Microsoft started out is basically to first when they deployed, they actually transform from Bicep to RM. This always works. The other way around, it doesn't work all the time. There are specific things which doesn't work. It's a bit tricky, but I think most people don't use it. It's something about profiles and so on. So they have a specific implementation. It's also on their GitHub website, so you can say like see what exactly is not possible. But for most things, it's very easy, and you can even use the Azure CLI. So when you have it installed, you can also install the Bicep and then directly transform from RM to Bicep if you want to. They have already this command inside, so you can go back and forth if you want to. So if you have like already, I don't know, 100 RM files, then you can directly transform them to Bicep and then work with Bicep directly.
Cool. And I guess I have one more question, and maybe this is a stupid question, but if it is, pretend it's a good one. Misconfiguration, yeah, misconfigurations you can do in any particular IAC language. Mm-hmm. Did Bicep cover off any of that, or is it just an abstraction layer that makes it easier? Or do all the rules apply, or did some of the rules just not make any sense anymore?
Basically, how the current implementation in Checkov is, it leverages the RM checks. So what we saw before, it also leverages them, but it has, of course, some extra goodies. So Bicep also supports YAML checks. So you can not only write it in Python, you can also use YAML checks, and you can also use connection checks. So you can check for example, a storage account or like a key vault connected to my storage account for some encryption parts. So this is what you can do, which was not possible with RM.
So it's better.
Oh, awesome.
Cool.
So it's fully integrated into the graph database
It has its
that
own
powers
graph.
that.
Correct. So that's also when I created the parser. I already know I will create a graph, so I knew how to do specific things. So I created some, let's say, shortcuts, so I don't have to do so much extra work to make the graph implementation inside Checkov. So also, if you're really interested, in the engineering part, you will see the graph implementation for Bicep in Checkov is very, very slim compared to the others.
Very cool. And for those of you that aren't sure what we mean by graph, if you see checks in Checkov that start CKV2 instead of CKV underscore, they're the checks that allow you to write rules covering more than one object. So using kind of a graph backend, we can say, is there something on this object which is linked to something else on this object? So for example, an EC2 instance connected to a security group or a VPC and things like that. So yes, definitely check out.
Yeah, definitely. If you are talking about graph, if Steve, you can share my screen, then I can directly see also what the graph is used. Because I also already opened up for the platform. So of course, if you integrated your repository directly with our platform, then you can see under supply chain graph here. So this is currently the Bicep gold, which interacted, and then you can see how it's actually fanning out and you exactly which one are actually buying together. So we also use this information to actually put it here into the supply chain, which will become better and better over the time, but that's how it is.
Cool. Let's call back to the supply chain graph.
I was just about to say, Steve, does this screen currently on display have echoings of your upcoming blog post about it?
Maybe.
Maybe. I can't say more. I don't want to say more.
It hasn't got
very cool.
Nice.
Sweet. Yeah, that's a good visualization of the graph that has been powering Checkov behind the scenes, but with the supply chain graph UI component now in Bridgecrew, it kind of allows you to visualize exactly how powerful that is and kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I can see the way through the issue.
Yeah. And I think especially what we talked about at the beginning, or a bit in the beginning, when the image referencer also comes, then of course this will also get into the supply chain. So you will see then, okay, you have your workflow files, sorry, and then see, okay, there are some specific images which are used, and maybe you should update them or just go for whatever. So with more time, you will see more and more things here in the supply chain and how actually everything is connected to each other.
That could not have been a better segue into image referencing and all things image scanning, could it? Really, it was like that was rehearsed. Beautifully done.
All right,
Steve,
natural transition.
Do you want to fill in the blanks?
Sure. So, the idea of the image referencer, as viewers can probably imagine, there's a lot of infrastructure as code of any kind that makes a reference to a particular image. And historically, we've looked for isolated misconfigurations in that infrastructure as code, and we pointed out what those misconfigurations are, and kind of not neglecting, but not necessarily paying clear attention and focus on the fact that there's an image referenced here, and this image is going to be instantiated as part of this infrastructure. So maybe we should take a look at that. Maybe we should leverage our friends at Prisma Cloud and some of the skills and libraries and CVE knowledge that already exists now via this partnership, let's call it. And so that's what we did. Now, it's not necessarily all visible on the platform, but it certainly is available in Checkov now if you know how to use it.
Famous words, right?
This is when my demo bombs. Yeah.
If you know the magic word.
So it's already in the help. So if you go to the Checkov documentation, we mentioned implementing the image referencer, and this largely summarizes what I just said. Images are referenced. There is a framework that it falls under on Checkov called SCA image, SCA for software composition analysis. Something that we are putting a lot of effort in over the next few months, in both in the platform and in Checkov. To get it to actually activate, though, there is a magic feature flag that is in the documentation just there. and you can run this on, and some, but not all, of the runners right now support it. So because it was added late, some of the earlier ones don't have it activated. If you can imagine, the anatomy of Checkov is essentially Chekhov's an engine that then I would say delegates the checks of different languages to the runners. The runners then have checks attached to the runners. And so then we typically ask people to add checks, but ideally we'd like people to add new runners, which is what we're talking about today, that understand and can successfully parse new languages. There isn't an example of the code in here, so I'm going to bring that up so you can see what it looks like quite simply in the context of what I've been working on, which is GitHub action workflows. So I am in here and I have got, let's do that one. That's probably large enough, actually. I can bring it up and then crush it down a little bit afterwards. This is a kind of a dummy. It doesn't really do anything, but it's designed to represent a GitHub action that has a job that specifies a container, and the container has an image, etc., and sets some ports, etc. So that represents the syntax of where an image might be referenced within a GitHub action. It also has a problem down below where I'm printing a certain issue title, etc. So this is a bad thing. So ideally now, if I want to scan my GitHub action workflow, I'm going to look for some of the bad things that we've been adding to GitHub action workflows, like the ability to, well, take advantage of this one exactly. Actually, if I tell you what's wrong with this, you understand. The idea that I'm echoing the title of my issue, and I do that as a new issue is opened, then this is bad because I can actually run my own code through this echo command because it's being run in bash. If I send in something, actually, seeing as I have it here, I can do this. So I can show you exactly what it means. And then I'll show you how I do the image referencer as well. So I'd say I've got some issues here.
A little bit of live hacking never goes amiss, does it, Steve?
People, it always works too. So they're not really worried about anything. Here's a slightly more advanced one that I put in place where it looks a little less blatant, right? So an issue gets created and I assign the issue title to a title. And then I check to make sure the issue isn't a bunch of junk. And then if it is, I say bad issue title. So on the surface, this looks like good input sanitization. The reality is it's terrible because I'm not sanitizing this prior to assigning it to title. And because it's in quotes and this runs in a bash shell, there's a way for me to game that. So if I come to issues and I create a new issue, for example, which I know that's going to run, I'm going to use the infamous backtick. There's serious potential that if I put in some crazy title like that, well, I wonder what that means. That looks really bad, right? Normal issue. It's fine. Don't work. Nothing to see here.
You should actually put a warning sign for no kids. Don't do it at home.
Do not do this at home. Yeah, don't trust them. If I submit the issue.
Hey kids, do not do this on repos that you do not own.
Right. And what's amazing is how many instances of manipulating titles and descriptions are out there. And so if I come over and I caught that here. So now I have all the environment variables for my GitHub runner. Now, if this is like a self-hosted runner, that'd be really bad because there could be all sorts of stuff in there. It's really nasty, right? And that's just one example of like bad use of metadata that comes in. I have a whole other talk about it. Look for it out there called Pwning the CI. So this is where this all came from. So that's what we're trying to do. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clear that off and I'm going to run that thing I just said because I'm not like Anton, I don't remember anything. I'm going to Checkov experimental, Checkov-D with my API key. You need the API key. That's important. So go get your free API key from bridgecrew.cloud. Put it in here. This is a temporary one, so too bad if you're writing it down right now. It's a waste of time. It's going to be gone after the show. And the reason we need the API key is to go get the vulnerability database. We don't have that just sitting on your laptop. If you do, that's weird. But it's going to run. It's going to, not only is it going to check, you can see the frameworks that are becoming activated now. It's detected. There's Kubernetes, GitHub Actions, secrets. It's found all sorts of stuff. You can see that it's running through. And when it's done, it's going to then spit out my results. But not just what you're used to seeing with Checkov, provided this actually works. The fact that it's taking a little bit extra time actually tells me that it's actually working, because the first time you run, let me shrink this down a little bit. It has to download a binary, which it puts in our .bridgecrew directory that does some of this. But you can see, like, this is not misconfiguration data. This is basically a bill of materials to do with the image that was being referenced in issue grouping, and all of the bad things, like intentionally, obviously, an older version, right?
Yeah, it
Lots
feels
of
like you should update your image, dude.
Yes. Doing another warning for the kids at home: do not reference the Python 3.9 Bullseye version. There are newer
Friends
versions
don't let friends run old images. You heard it here first.
Yeah. So it comes across, though, very much like a check result, because you can actually see the lines in the file, and you can go look at where it's referenced, and then you can see all the vulnerabilities, and you get enough information there to act upon that manually. And this is the kind of stuff that's going to end up being on the platform. But you scroll up, you can still see the issue I have with the actions that are in the same directory. For example, picking up that, wow, why are you using a curl with a secret? That looks nasty. There's another one, another curl with a secret. Use of netcat. Why is there a netcat? Oh, that looks bad. Okay, don't do that. So all sorts of kind of fairly dangerous things that I've got in this demo directory, and then all the things I did right, which nobody cares about what you do right. That's then boring. So we've got the standard Checkov results, but now I have the image referencer results, which is great. So if I turn that on and there's ever anything going forward, I get to see everything that's happening. And it's, as people start to develop runners, it is almost about 10 minutes extra work to add the image referencer capability to new runners. So we're going to be doing that going forward, and even going backwards to some of the older runners and adding that in. So I think that's kind of what I want to show. Like you can actually scan images with Checkov. What? And we're adding so many runners, and that was just a little demo of one such runner, which is inspecting your GitHub action workflows, of which there are many ways to abuse. So more checks in that space coming to you very soon.
Yeah, but actually,
very, very cool.
Yeah, but you also showed some other new capability, actually, the progress bar, which just briefly...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's true. If people didn't see that, I was using the latest and greatest Checkov. So, that's what the show's all about.
Yeah, always use the latest and greatest.
We probably should have a little bit of a shout out to the fact that we have bumped the version, right? The name of the stream probably gave it away, but Checkov is now at 2.1. Or as I accidentally wrote down in the show notes originally, 1.2, which really confused our marketing team. But yes, not on 2.1877.252 anymore, which is nice. It does show just how many kind of changes and commits we make. So, woo! Checkov 2.1 did it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just for so if you're using the newest one, you will just be nicely surprised. There will be the progress bar, so you also now know exactly which kind of runner we are working, which we're using against here. So will be probably sometimes like kind of a surprise for people, like especially like also like for like the Argo workflows, because Argo workflows is like a Kubernetes one, so we run both Kubernetes and Argo workflows and secrets on top of it, so we know exactly what will come out or not come out, depending on, of course, if you have a great templates and there's no issues, then you will not see anything what we can suggest for, but now you actually know what we're actually doing in the backend.
Yeah, I think as we add a lot more, sorry, Steve. I think as we add a lot more functionality as well to Checkov, all these new runners, all these new capabilities with the API, it is, instead of having to switch on debug mode and scroll through logs with an M flag to see what's going on, it is super helpful to make sure it's running the frameworks you think it's running. It's doing the things. Let's say you use an embedded Checkov config file in your repo, which gets automatically used. It's just good to have that visual knowledge that, there's no result, but the runner has run. So that's, not something I need to go digging through.
Awesome. I didn't even know that was coming, so that's cool.
It surprised me too. The first time I used it, I was like, "Oh, that's really
Oh,
nice."
what is this?
Do I have it in debug mode or something?
Like I was also surprised, like some also other people like reach out to me like, oh, it's so nice like that you added it. I was just first thinking, what are you talking about? Ah, yeah, the progress bar, got it.
People don't want more checks. They just want a nice, shiny progress bar. If that is not the case, let us know.
All right, well, that's two down.
I think what's really cool, just on your point as well, Steve, is a lot of people didn't realize that Checkov actually has had image scanning capability built into it using Prisma Cloud capabilities with an API key for a long time. But it was kind of clunky. You had to locally have the image checked out. You had to specifically say, hey, Checkov, I want you to scan this image name with this version. So the core component to scan and get that result was there. But this just takes it to a whole new level where, like you said, with the line mappings back to your IAC, because if you're in an IAC scanner, you don't really care about the image name and the image version. You want to see where you are defining that image so that you can go and bump it and things like that. So yeah, very cool.
Yep, it's awesome.
So I guess that just leaves one more demo, doesn't it? Which is probably the most risky one, because this is not a finished runner. So if you want to go ahead and share my screen.
No risk, no fun,
Yeah. So what I have here is kind of mid-writing some of the checks for a new, very much inspired in the same way as the one Steve's just demonstrated with GitHub Actions. This is for Circle CI. So doing a lot of the same stuff, just with a different format of pipeline definition, effectively. But all the same things are valid as kind of. And I, by the way, I would absolutely recommend shout out for Steve's talk on pawning the CI. There's a recording of it from DevSecCon on YouTube. I cannot recommend that enough. But in the similar way that you can kind of pawn CI pipelines in GitHub, you can do the same in pretty much any CI that allows variables, allows you to run shell commands and things like that. So what we have here is a Circle CI pipeline. You can see we have a few example checks already. So things for any Docker images we find, like, hey, let's make sure that you're not using the word latest, because that tag can be manipulated. Also, don't just use version numbers. You should be referencing the image you're using via hash, especially in the days where we're worried about supply chain attacks. And then specifics related to Circle CI. So, for example, Circle CI has its own custom packaging format called orbs. There's ways of using mutable development orbs that, again, you have no knowledge of whether they've changed between runs or if they've changed and stayed at that same version, rather than a SHA, for example, to reference an orb. So we're catching those as well. And what we will see here is an example Circle CI config file. So unlike GitHub Actions, just a couple of things that are different. In GitHub, you can kind of have a workflows directory, and kind of any YAML under there that looks like a workflow, it will run. Circle CI, not so. It has to be under .circleci, and it has to be .config.yaml, which from writing a Checkov runner is actually really, really useful. So that's the only file we need to check for existence of. But you can see here we have something that might have some issues from a security standpoint. We have the item latest used as an image. We have versions here rather than a secure SHA. We have, as I said, some of these development orbs, which are mutable and therefore not particularly good security posture. So with these, we can run Checkov, and I've already got it set up just to run just the Circle CI pipeline framework. And So if we run that, you're going to see a little bit of debug output here as well. This is what you do not need anymore with the progress bar, which is quite nice. And then what we will see is what you'd expect to see. Need some tidying up on some of the failure error messages, but you can see here that we shouldn't be referencing version. We should be using hashes. We shouldn't be referencing latest. And also, I'm sure somewhere we will have number 3 about development orbs not being used. And you can see this is all coming from the .circle CI config file. So we are also going to import the existing work Steve did on all the concerning exploit for CI/CD. So the policies for, hey, why have you got curl? Why is there netcap? All of those things in the run commands for a CI configuration file. Those policies are getting moved across so that they will also work in Circle CI. So yeah, that's the runner coming to a PR on Anton's desk very, very soon.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
That's good. I have to steal some of yours as well, because the use of latest and versions. I don't have that in my workflows one yet for the image referencer. So I've got
Cool.
to now.
Yeah, I think
share.
I stole those. I think I stole those from the Kubernetes runner. Actually, that's the great thing about Checkov, by the way. If you have never written a Checkov check or a Checkov runner for that matter, and we'll kind of cover in a moment how we've created all these runners in such a short amount of time due to some of the awesome work Anton's been doing on and his team on some clever changes within Checkov. But if you've never written a runner or a check before, you would be amazed just how easy it is to copy and paste your way to glory, because I can pretty much guarantee that nearly any check you could need to write, there will probably be something very similar in a different framework that you can just kind of read through, take the bits you need from it. I don't think I've written a check from scratch in a long, long time. What about you, Steve?
Never.
There we go.
No. You can. I don't think I've written anything from scratch ever.
Yeah, okay.
I go Stack Overflow.
We leave from scratch.
What text did you find?
We leave from scratch to the professionals, Anton.
That's right.
Yeah, all good. But for me, it's like, of course, sometimes I, especially if new features come out, for example, like on AWS or on the other cloud providers, then I think already, that could be actually maybe a bit more dangerous. I think the last one, I didn't do it because basically it was more like learning material for one of our new colleagues. It was to check for the Lambda URL. So if you ever heard of it, it's like when you use AWS Lambda, you can actually create a URL. So you can open up your Lambda to the public if you want to, just easily, and do whatever. So you basically open up your whole system to it and can do whatever. So it's very, very brutal. So so we also added this part. So, and that's usually like when I read some news about like new features in one of the cloud provider, then like, I think this can be actually exploitable.
Nice.
The problem with working on cloud infrastructure security, we all just secretly want to be on the breaky, pen testy side, don't
but that's how it happens, right? Someone gets a great idea because they need something, and that their brain's always on this is going to make life easy, and we're like, this is going to make life hard.
It's going to make our lives hard.
Yeah.
But the good
Do you
part
know how
is,
many new policies we're going to have to write for this?
Yeah. All right. I brought this up, Matt. Maybe you want to where's the edit stream? There we go.
Awesome.
The runner contribution guide. So we were going to get into why things are easy.
Yeah, I didn't know who wanted to take this, either yourself, Steve, or Anton. But as a bit of an introduction, work has gone on inside Checkov to modularize a lot of components that were previously per runner. So for example, the Kubernetes runner used to have its own logic for parsing YAML and JSON, and they have been split out. So there is now a generic JSON runner, a generic YAML runner. And that might not sound like a big deal, but to Steve's point here, it means that actually writing a new runner, as long as it's a runner for something that is in JSON or YAML, is now almost as easy as writing a check. Steve, you recently wrote a runner from scratch and wrote this contribution guide. Like, compared to previous runners that you've worked on, how was it?
Well, the thing is, the reason this exists is because I had never written a runner, and I was told to write one, and so I went in and looked at the code for all the runners and went, "Wait, are we rewriting it every time?" So then it ended up in an exercise where I think Anton, you were writing something in parallel, and Barak and I just had two screens open for 2 days, and he just started writing the generic YAML. I think he started with the YAML, and he was taking a lot of stuff out of the Kubernetes one, and he created. So he kind of, while I was saying don't do that, or saying that's never going to work, started creating the bases. While he was creating the bases, I was writing this document of, okay, well, does it make sense? What are the terminologies he's using? What's he saying? What don't I understand? And at the same time, I was then writing the GitHub Actions YAML on top of the base YAML he was doing. And so as I was doing that one, and he was creating the generic one, these were created simultaneously, and thus the diagram of how it's all laid out came out of this. But it's not a huge, this is how long this guide is. It's tiny. You inherit so much functionality from the base YAML and the base JSON. And of course, YAML and JSON being what they are, they always do something stupid that means it's not exactly perfect. But the amount you have to think in terms to accommodate an entirely new infrastructure as code that uses at least one of these two as a base means you can generally do it pretty quick. I certainly, the GitHub Action one, because it's my first one, took a while, but I did GitLab as well, and that's in YAML. And I was testing it halfway through the first day, by noon, I was writing tests. Of course, not at work, but I had the basics of it done pretty quick. So this is where you just start making. I mean, not everybody does an Anton and writes an entire parser
during the weekend, a long weekend. Yeah, but it's actually true. So when I also was interested to actually try it out, especially your documentation, and then I thought about, hey, okay, there are a couple of more kind of workflows, a workflows engine. And I read an article a few weeks ago about some security issues with Argo workflows, and then I was like, hey, we don't have Argo workflows, but let's try out the documentation which Steve was written, and then I think it took me roughly a day, but most of the time it took me to actually write the checks itself, to actually have the logic. Okay, what do I actually want to check? The runner itself, or it was easy to do. Because it's YAML, or it could be also JSON, doesn't matter. And then I only had to think about, okay, what do I actually want to check? And I already knew what I want to check. So it was more like, okay, how can I best find it out inside the YAML part? So where do I have to look at?
Awesome. So there we go. This is a call to action for viewers.
And more runners.
and more runners, right.
And it's perfectly timed, right? Because you look at all these new solutions coming up, there isn't anything being created at the moment that doesn't have its configuration file in either JSON or YAML, or usually both. So, realistically, it covers everything. So I'm the same. The Circle CI runner, the actual runner code was written in a day. The majority of the time was spent researching the actual format of Circle CI's runner, what are the edge cases, what could and could not be in that manifest, what are the things I need to check for. Getting together the information for your checks takes a lot longer than the actual runner implementation, for sure.
Yeah, the GitLab one, it seems almost like they have some basic structure, and then they just go, and then do a shell, and then do whatever you want. Like, oh, really?
Here's a here doc. Put whatever you want in it.
Oh, come on.
Here's the magic key. Just use it, and you can do whatever.
Holy moly. Yeah. So we're still working on that one. Yeah. So
go for it, Steve. I was going to say, if there's someone that wants a runner, if you need a Travis runner, and it's in JSON or YAML, and you go, I've been told that's super easy. Put our claim to the test. Come and talk to us, and we will happily help you get started writing a new runner.
Yeah. I had a request at KubeCon for Istio. A guy I spoke to said, there's 1,000 ways to do Istio badly. I'm like, oh, really? Oh, do tell. And
my notepad, right.
Yeah, he said it would be cool if we had an Istio runner that looked for just common bad practices within Istio. And I was like, okay, well, it's just YAML. It's just this, it's essentially looks like Kubernetes, but you just need to know what to look for. So we could pretty quickly add that runner. So he could add that, but it also means that, not everybody has time, but we can do it quickly as well, provided they explain how the misconfigurations work.
But then I think Istio is also a CRD, right? The custom resource definition. That's why. Yeah, it's similar to also Argo workflows. So basically, they look super similar to Kubernetes and have then their own special syntax. So yeah, definitely. I think also would definitely be more interesting to go into specific tool configuration, and then maybe we also need to open up an XML runner for really old school Java stuff.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You go ahead and do that.
Upload your schema file here.
Yeah. What is it? What's Jenkins in? Groovy?
Yeah, it has its own DSL and Groovy.
It's got its own backend database, doesn't it?
Maybe that.
Which is why there are no static analysis scanners for Jenkins, because there isn't a config file.
Yep. Well, all right then. On that bombshell.
Hey ho. I will quickly talk about two things we haven't talked about. One is the Open API runner, which also now exists, because it turns out if you have the ability to parse JSON and YAML, then the Swagger spec, which is now Open API, is in that format, so we can catch kind of common mistakes made in writing APIs. And you've already touched on the fact that you beasted out a GitLab runner, Steve, following your own documentation in not long at all. So if you are using GitLab as well, and you want to see if you've got any of those CI/CD style mistakes that might leave you open to kind of a source code takeover, check that one out as well.
Excellent. Good plug. And if you want us to, write a runner, if we think we're missing anything, then why not come on and join us at slack.bridgecrew.io. Join the community, talk to us live, send us a DM, and tell us what you'd like to see.
Anton loves it when people come and say hi in Slack. Make his day. Come and say hi in Slack.
Hey, what up, dudes? Yeah, but definitely reach out to us either through Slack or create a GitHub issue and have some great ideas. Even if you can't implement it, we're still happy about issues which you can create easily if you want. So don't be afraid of just clicking and writing something. We try our best to answer, and if it's not too valid or then we will answer for how we would approach the specific parts. What you have.
Amazing.
Cool. And that brings us to the top of the hour. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And the end of the show. I think the next one will likely be coming to you all live from a well-known Vegas hacking conference sometime in the future. So stay tuned for that. And I'm sure we'll have some great insights of things that make us go, oh, that's going to make us write more policies.
Yeah. Why did I use the Wi-Fi? Those kind of moments.
Yeah. Why did I use? Oh, last time I was at DEF CON, it was not even the Wi-Fi, like 4G. If you were on Android and you were on 4G, suddenly all of your system files that needed an urgent update. It's like, right, who's running
Very
that on cell? Come on.
God. All right.
Hey, love that
I'm bringing my
conference.
Nokia 3310 with me. All right.
Pretty much. Yeah, burner phones at the ready. Thank you very much, Anton, Steve. Thanks as always. And yeah, we'll see you guys all next time.
See you later.
Bye.